All right. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to the 40th Annual Fair Housing Month celebration, with this year's theme being Fair Housing, a Place to Call Home. So, it's great seeing you all here. Thank you again for everyone who is in attendance. I do see some comments coming in through the chat to the answer of what is your favorite thing about home. We have safety, we have the kitchen, and these are all great things about home. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. So we're going to go ahead and begin today's celebration. It's great to see so many familiar and new names. And as we're going through today's celebration, if everyone in attendance would like to interact with our staff and go ahead and share little reactions through Zoom, feel free to do so. I hope you all enjoy what we have planned for you today. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so in today's agenda, we're going to be hearing an introduction from our executive director along with the Fair Housing team. We'll then be hearing from some great speakers. We'll be hearing from our keynote, Scott Chang, who's the senior civil rights attorney with NAFA, and we'll also be hearing from Dr. Chamberlain. Then we'll be able to look at the amazing posters that were submitted by the youth in the community. And then we'll have some appreciation raffles, which everyone who is in attendance today is automatically entered in a chance to win one of our amazing raffle prizes. So make sure you stick around for that. And then we'll be closing it out with some closing remarks from our executive director as well. Speaking of whom, please help me welcome our executive director, Stella Verdeja.
Hello and welcome to the 40th Annual Fair Housing Month celebration. It is with great pleasure to welcome everyone to celebrate with us April as Fair Housing Month. The theme of today's celebration is Fair Housing, a Place to Call Home. The Fair Housing Foundation has been providing fair housing services to municipalities for 60 years. We currently provide services to 26 cities in both LA and Orange County. We assist approximately 6,000 clients annually. We provide a robust fair housing program that includes opening fair housing cases, investigating complaints of discrimination in housing, landlord and tenant counseling and mediations. Additionally, we take a step further and we assist clients at risk of losing their home through rental counseling. We help work on a budget, we create a savings plan, and work on improving their credit score so they're no longer considered at risk. Our outreach team works diligently throughout the entire year, reaching out to the community, providing workshops, presentations, and informational booths throughout our service area. The Fair Housing Foundation takes great pride in upholding the principles and the values of the Fair Housing Act and everything it embodies. This year, we were awarded a HUD private enforcement grant. With this grant, we were able to create a short video regarding fair housing. I hope you enjoy it.
Fair housing is the guarantee that you have the right to live anywhere that your qualifications can take you, regardless of race, skin color, religion, sex, gender, national origin, disability, and familial status. And additional protections are available for California residents. Fair housing creates diverse neighborhoods, making it the foundation for thriving communities. We all benefit from fair housing, including landlords, tenants, owners, and home seekers. Knowing your rights, responsibilities, and expectations are the pillars that uphold fair housing. Freedom of housing choice is your right, and no one should decide for you. Your rights are protected under the law. Happy neighborhoods are made possible by supporters like you. Thank you. This message is provided to you by the Fair Housing Foundation. To learn more, visit our website at fhfca.org or call 800-446-3247.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Cindy Guzman, and I am the Fair Housing Specialist and the lead of the Fair Housing Department. The Fair Housing Department not only educates tenants and landlords about their fair housing rights, but also investigates and conciliates fair housing complaints. This year, we This year, we commemorate the 56th anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, disability, and familial status, in addition to other state protections. Recently, I assisted a tenant named Wendy, a resident of Bellflower, who was not only dealing with her own struggles with depression, but also coping with the loss of her partner. Following his passing, her depression worsened, and it was recommended that she get an emotional support animal. She acquired a dog named Valentin for this purpose. Wendy wrote to the management company to inform them about her need for an emotional support animal, as the building had a no pet policy. While waiting a response, she had to hide Valentin at night when she returned home, and during the day, she had to take Valentin to daycare while she was at work. Despite her efforts to handle the matter independently, management did not respond. Wendy reached out for help and was connected to our office. We communicated with the management company, and after several attempts, management finally approved her request, allowing Wendy to keep her Valentin without having to hide him. Here's what Wendy said in appreciation. She said in Spanish. I will provide the translation. First, thank you for everything, because if it hadn't been for you, this wouldn't have been possible. Thank God for people like you who helped. As of yesterday, my life changed for the better, and I finally have my dog with me. The supervisor called me very happy, saying you can take him with you. It was the best news I received. Next, we have Stacy Viramontes, who's also part of the Fair Housing team.
Hello, my name is Stacy Viramontes. I'm a case analyst here at Fair Housing Foundation. Prior to joining this team, I was an immigration paralegal for 10 years and assisted immigrants in court proceedings. My favorite thing about home is being able to watch my daughter grow in a safe space. Next, we're going to watch a video on testing produced by a fair housing organization. Fair housing testing refers to the use of testers who, without any bona fide intent to rent, sell, or purchase a property, pose as prospective renters, sellers, or buyers of residential real estate for the purpose of determining whether housing providers and others are complying with the Fair Housing Act as defined by HUD.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, testing, question. What is the difference between home and hope? It is sun-kissed melanin stretched between denial and eviction. It is a family blown up and left shrapneled into uncertainty. It is a tester, brave as a wind, who understands that providing housing opportunities is a project for excellence. It is to be tested and stand the test of time again and again. Question: are those who don't know their history only doomed to resell it at a higher price? 1976, the irony of an anchor building denying a plaintiff a secure way to be kept in one place. 2003, an immigrant family is told that their ethnicity is a border not white enough to let them in. 2018, housing providers require pregnant women to show their ultrasounds to prove of their family unit. 2019, disabled peoples are shown inaccessible apartments because their circles don't fit into the design of their square footage. 2020, a queer couple is told that their rainbow is not enough for a home. 2022, landlords change their no vacancy signs because of the color of your skin and the content of your Section 8 voucher. 2023, a Black couple's home is undervalued because their family photos show more African descent than Anglo-Saxon. Testing, 1, 2. Gathering evidence is a necessary battle to provide ammunition for enforcement, a fighting chance for a peace of mind, to be free of worry and anxiety buried in unfair terms and conditions. So when testing, question everything. Documents provided, pictures taken, written reports that could be evidence of fair housing violation. Question when they claim entrapment, even as they force people to live in a trap that they can profit from. Question the ways they force people to move and treat them more like target than human. Question their commitment to fair housing and their training of managers. Question their forked tongues and unfair occupancy standards. Question their upkeep of records and inconsistent rules. Question their retaliation when they thought they could treat people like fools because hope lives here. Hope strives here for your children, elderly, disabled, houseless veterans, for your queer, trans, immigrant, ethnic, and melanated persons. Testing, 1, 2. When proof of housing discrimination is the question, testing is the necessary answer, which is to say, be a brave wind. This is not just a test. This is a measure of justice that can mean a degree of reparations, or how someone may get to finally say, welcome home. It's been a long time coming.
The evidence provided by testers is frequently valuable, if not indispensable, and is a major resource in society's continuing struggle to eliminate the subtle but deadly poison of housing discrimination. Richardson.
Stacey and I would like to take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to everyone who has taken the role of the tester. Your hard work, dedication, and commitment are truly commendable. Without you, we would not be able to uncover instances of housing discrimination. Thank you for your valuable contributions. If you would like to join our mission by becoming a tester, please contact us. Next, we have Martha Torres.
Hello, my name is Martha Torres, Community Engagement Liaison with the Fair Housing Foundation. I oversee the Education and Outreach Department and assure that FHF has a strong presence in the community by bringing awareness about the services that we provide. I also bridge the gap between FHF and the needs of our diverse communities by offering and developing educational workshops on rights and responsibilities and current issues impacting housing. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Scott Chang, Senior Civil Rights Counsel with the National Fair Housing Alliance. Scott Chang is Senior Counsel on Office Enforcement Team. He was previously the Litigation Director at Housing Rights Center in Los Angeles, Counsel at Relman Colfax LLC, and was an attorney at Braincart and Braincount. He has litigated several significant fair housing cases, including a case establishing that fair housing organizations have standing in the Ninth Circuit. Please help me welcome Scott Chang.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me. Congratulations on 40 years of successful Fair Housing Month celebrations and 60 years and your 60th anniversary, and also congratulations on your FIP grant. 56 years ago, the Fair Housing Act was passed. The Fair Housing Act is our nation's primary fair housing law. On April 11th, 1968, President Lyndon Johnson signed into law Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, known as the Federal Fair Housing Act. The law was passed 7 days after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The law was passed to honor Dr. King's work to create open or fair housing in the United States. The twin goals of the Fair Housing Act are to prohibit discrimination in housing and replace existing patterns of residential segregation with truly integrated and balanced living patterns. One of the most comprehensive civil rights laws, it prohibits a wide range of discriminatory housing practices and provides strong remedies, including injunctive relief and damages. But the great promise of the Fair Housing Act has been yet to be realized. A large home ownership gap exists between Black and white homeowners and is larger than it was when the Fair Housing Act was passed. Segregation and discrimination continue in our neighborhoods. Today, I want to discuss how we got to where we are today, highlight some programs and strategies to address segregation and discrimination in housing, and finally discuss the future of such programs after the Supreme Court's decision in Students for Fair Admissions. Just a little bit about NAFA. NAFA is the only national civil rights organization dedicated to eliminating housing discrimination and ensuring equitable housing opportunities for all people and communities. And we have a number of programs, including education outreach, member services, public policy and advocacy, housing and community development, tech equity enforcement, and consulting and compliance. During the New Deal, the Home Owners Loan Corporation, or HOLC, was established. The HOLC used feedback from real estate professionals to develop risk categories and maps that were explicitly based on the unfounded association between race and risk. As you can see in this HOLC map of Baltimore, the government shaded areas in red and coded them as hazardous if there were any Black households in the area. This led to the term redlining, which is used today. You can also see a yellow area labeled as definitely declining. That category could be imposed if there are any Black households located in the adjoining area. Later, the Federal Housing Administration adopted this system for underwriting mortgages. Hired by the FHA to develop underwriting criteria, Homer Hoyt argued that segregation was necessary and racially mixed neighborhoods reduced land values. He published a list of racial groups and ranked them for their influence on land values. The Federal Housing Administration contributed to the segregation of our neighborhoods. The 1938 FHA underwriting manual stated, areas surrounding a location are investigated to determine whether incompatible racial and social groups are present for the purpose of making a prediction regarding the probability of the locations being invaded by such groups. In addition, the FHA required racially restrictive covenants in exchange for supporting new housing developments in the suburbs. Even after the Supreme Court declared in 1948 that racially restrictive covenants were not enforceable, the FHA gave preferential treatment to developers that adopted racially restrictive covenants. We've discussed the HOLC and racially restricted covenants, but there are a host of other public policies and laws that have contributed to the structural inequities in housing. In 1968, the Fair Housing was passed with the twin goals of eliminating discrimination and integrating our nation's neighborhoods. Despite the passage of the Fair Housing Act and given the centuries of discriminatory policies by government as well as private actors, today the home ownership gap between Black and white individuals is larger than it was before the passage of the Fair Housing Act. Latinos and other communities of color also lag behind the white home ownership rate. Given that home ownership is the cornerstone of building wealth in the United States, it's not surprising that the wealth gap between white and communities of color remains large and persistent. This slide shows homeownership rates by race and national origin. The Black homeownership rate has barely risen since 1970. It's risen about 1.2% between 1970 and 2019. When you look at our education systems, our transportation, healthcare, food, employment, credit, broadband, and internet systems are not equity resources because these benefits, these amenities, the quality and amount of these services are not the same. They vary based on where people live. So we have quantitative and qualitative gaps and inequities that impact every aspect of people's lives. Next, let's discuss a few race-conscious and race-neutral housing programs developed to address these inequities. First is special purpose credit programs. Special purpose credit programs are targeted lending products designed to specifically advantage an economically disadvantaged group of people. SPCPs can be created to benefit designated protected classes of people. SBCPs are not new at all. They were made allowable in 1974 as a provision of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act to counteract centuries of unfair laws and policies that deprive millions of consumers the right and opportunity to access fair mortgage and credit opportunities. These unfair laws and policies created many inequities and barriers to our housing and lending markets that still impact millions of consumers. SBCPs are a way of providing these consumers access to quality, affordable, and sustainable credit. SBCPs are specifically permitted by law. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act, first passed in 1974, prohibits discrimination in credit on the basis of race or national origin, among other factors. However, ECOA also states that it does not constitute discrimination for a for-profit organization to refuse to extend credit offered pursuant to a special purpose credit program in order to meet the special social needs, or for a nonprofit to administer a credit assistance program for its members or an economically disadvantaged group of persons. Congress ensured that these programs permit consideration of prohibited bases such as race and national origin or sex in order to increase access to credit to the credit market by persons previously foreclosed from it. One example of a SBCP is the San Diego Foundation Access Granted Homebuyer Program. It provides grants of $40,000 to be used toward down payment or closing costs on qualifying home purchase transactions to eligible participants. Eligible participants include people from an underserved community, a current resident of San Diego County, a first-time home buyer, and part of a household earning less than 120% of San Diego area median income. NAFA has a comprehensive SBCP toolkit on the web at sbctoolkit.com. Will provide you with a lot of information about SBCPs and was designed to assist lenders who wanted to implement special purpose credit programs. Next, let's discuss first generation home buyer programs. A first-generation home buyer program typically refers to a government or a private initiative aimed at assisting individuals who are purchasing a home for the first time in their family. These programs often provide financial assistance such as down payment assistance, reduced interest rates, or special loan options to help overcome the financial barriers that can make it challenging for a first-time home buyer to afford a home. The term first generation usually refers to individuals who are first in their family to buy a home. These programs recognize the importance of home ownership in building wealth and stability and seek to support individuals who may not have inherited property or financial resources from previous generations. First-generation home programs are race-neutral programs that likely benefit Black and Latinos. An example of a first-generation program is the California Dream for All program. It offers up to 20% for down payment or closing costs, not to exceed $150,000. To qualify, one borrower must be a first-generation home buyer, and all borrowers must be first-time home buyers. Next, let's turn to another housing program, affirmative marketing. Affirmative marketing is a concerted effort to market housing to groups identified as the least likely to know about and apply for the housing in question. Affirmative marketing promotes the purposes of the Fair Housing Act. It promotes residential integration, particularly where people move from low opportunity areas to areas of higher opportunity. It promotes fair and open housing choice, and it helps people overcome the legacies of housing discrimination. There are 4 components to affirmative marketing program: targeting, outreach, indicators, and training. Targeting is the identification of groups least likely to apply. Least likely to apply means that there's a specific demographic group in the housing market area, but members of that group are not likely to apply for the housing without targeted outreach. To determine who to target for affirmative marketing, the housing provider compares the demographics of the census tract for new housing, its existing housing or applicant pool, with the demographics of the market area or the largest market area to determine if there needs to be affirmative marketing to those least likely to apply. Outreach means special measures to attract those least likely to apply. Although outreach can include traditional media such as newspapers and radio, there are many other types of outreach that have proven to be successful. One example is tours of the housing in the neighborhood. These are organized visits or tours for prospective residents to gain personal exposure to the housing itself and the resources available in the new community. The tours give prospective residents the opportunity to tour units and any common areas or amenities and speak to current residents about their experiences. Neighborhood tours could identify where local amenities are located, including transportation, shopping, healthcare, and schools. There are many examples of successful affirmative marketing programs. In Carlsbad, California, the developers of a mixed-income housing project launched a successful countywide affirmative marketing plan that emphasized outreach to different media sources and local employers. The affirmative marketing plan resulted in a diverse resident population, 25% Hispanic, 13% Black, 7% Asian, and 8% other, in a city that was more than 80% white. Affirmative marketing practices are legal under the Fair Housing Act. HUD's Fair Housing Regulations interpreting the Fair Housing Act state that an affirmative marketing program designed to make available information which broadens housing choice does not violate the Fair Housing Act. The courts have similarly held that affirmative marketing policies that broaden choice are lawful under the Fair Housing Act. In the leading case on affirmative marketing under the Fair Housing Act, the defendants challenged an affirmative marketing plan that required outreach to white home seekers to view homes in a neighborhood of color. The plaintiffs placed advertisements in newspapers with predominantly white circulation and distributed information to selected rental developments and selected employers. The purpose of the program was to maintain integration. The court held that the affirmative marketing plan merely provided additional information to white homebuyers concerning properties they might not ordinarily know about or consider, and involved no lessening of efforts to attract Black homebuyers. According to the court, the affirmative marketing plan advanced the purpose of the Fair Housing Act by making housing equally available to all by stimulating interest among a broad range of buyers. The court noted that the affirmative marketing plan in no way deterred Black homebuyers from pursuing their interest in homes. It merely created additional competition in the housing market. Thus, affirmative marketing practices that broaden choice by providing additional information to underrepresented renters or buyers and do not deter others are legal under the Fair Housing Act. Next, let's discuss anti-displacement and neighborhood preferences for housing. There are a couple of different residency preferences. I want to focus on neighborhood preferences and anti-displacement preferences, but also we'll just refer to traditional residency preferences. Traditionally, a residency preference is a preference for housing for local residents in a specific geographic area. A requirement that local residents receive preference to housing may be legally vulnerable in predominantly white communities where the broader housing market area is diverse. In such cases, a local preference may operate to exclude certain racial or ethnic groups from housing and thus have an unjustified disparate impact. In traditional preference cases, the applicant for housing may prove a violation of fair housing laws by providing statistical evidence showing that the preference has a discriminatory effect on a protected group, such as race or national origin. Through the years, courts have often struck down such preferences as violating fair housing laws. Next, we will discuss anti-displacement and neighborhood preferences. Local governments are increasingly adopting anti-displacement and neighborhood preferences. Anti-displacement preference is a home ownership or tenant preference for housing that aims to prevent residential displacement and stabilize neighborhoods. An anti-displacement preference is often applied to people that live in neighborhoods where there is displacement of low-income households or people displaced by fire, owner move-ins, or housing being taken off the market. A neighborhood preference is a home ownership or tenant preference that seeks to stabilize neighborhoods and prevent people from being uprooted. Neighborhood preferences are provided to people who live in the same neighborhood as the housing. Anti-displacement and neighborhood preferences are usually implemented by local governments and often limited to 40% of or fewer of the available units. Next, we will discuss some examples of neighborhood and anti-displacement preferences. The city of San Francisco has a neighborhood residents housing preference for affordable housing that provides a preference for residents who live within a half-mile or in the same supervisory district as the housing. The city of San Jose has an anti-displacement preference that designates 20% of new and existing affordable housing properties for low-income applicants who live in certain areas of San Jose that have a high likelihood of displacement. Eligible residents must live in the census tract categorized as high risk or undergoing displacement by a credible, authoritative external source, such as the Urban Displacement Project at UC Berkeley. Another example of an anti-displacement preference is the City of Portland's North-Northeast preference policy that provides a preference to housing applicants with ties to historic inequitable housing practices in North-Northeast Portland. The policy prioritizes housing applicants who reside, have previously lived in, or have generational ties to the region for city-sponsored affordable housing. Preference points are based on the amount of urban renewal that occurred where an applicant, their parents, or ancestors lived, and given to applicants who were displaced or at risk of displacement, or who are descendants of families that have been displaced due to urban renewal in Northeast Portland. This is a map that sets forth the preferences that people can receive under the Northeast Portland preference. The dark green areas are awarded 3 preference points. The light green areas are awarded 2 preference points, and the yellow areas applicants are awarded 1 preference point. There have been relatively few legal challenges to anti-displacement and neighborhood preferences thus far. HUD initially refused to approve San Francisco's neighborhood preference described earlier for a specific HUD-funded affordable housing development. HUD for housing officials argued that the preference limited equal access to housing and perpetuated segregation. HUD eventually approved a preference for 40% of the units at the housing development for people living in 5 neighborhoods in San Francisco who are at risk of displacement as determined by the Urban Displacement Project. HUD approved the preference because it believed it would assist residents at risk of displacement from neighborhoods across the city, not just the residents in the neighborhoods closest to the affordable housing development, and therefore would not limit equal access in housing and perpetuate segregation. In New York, fair housing advocates challenged a similar neighborhood preference for affordable housing. In Noel versus City of New York, the plaintiffs alleged that a preference policy that established preferences for up to 50% of the units in new affordable housing developments for residents of neighborhoods in those units in which those units were developed violated fair housing laws. The plaintiffs claimed that the preference made it more difficult for Blacks and Latinos to move from segregated neighborhoods to more integrated neighborhoods of higher opportunity in the city. A federal court allowed claims Sorry about that. A federal court allowed claims that the preference policy intentionally discriminated and perpetuated residential segregation to proceed to trial. Shortly before trial, the case settled. The City of New York agreed to reduce the number of units subject to the neighborhood preference from 50% to 15% over 5 years. HUD's approval of the anti-displacement preference in the HUD-assisted housing development in San Francisco and the recent settlement in New York City case suggests that neighborhood and anti-displacement preference may be able to survive fair housing-based challenges, but the percentage of units subject to the preferences may need to be limited depending on local conditions and needs. However, the law in this area continues to develop. These are just a few examples of race-conscious and race-neutral housing programs developed to address the homeownership gap and housing inequities. Next, let's turn to the question of whether these programs continue to be legal after the Supreme Court's decision in the affirmative action in higher education cases. The Supreme Court's landmark decision in Students for Fair Admissions versus the President and Fellows of Harvard College upended prior precedent and held that universities' consideration of race in their admissions procedures violate the Equal Protection Clause, the 14th Amendment, and Title VI. The court concluded that admissions programs that violated the law because they lack sufficiently focused and measurable objectives warranting the use of race, unavoidably employ race in a negative manner, involve racial stereotyping, and lack meaningful endpoints. The court held that students must be evaluated on their experience as an individual and not on the basis of race. So what does that mean for race-conscious and race-neutral housing programs? The court's opinion is limited to the specific context of higher education admissions and based on the Equal Protection Clause in Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The decision does not address or interpret race-conscious strategies to increase home ownership and address inequities under the Fair Housing Act or other housing-related civil rights such as the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. Nevertheless, organizations and individuals are starting to attempt to challenge race-conscious housing programs under the Equal Protection Clause, analogizing the Supreme Court's affirmative action precedent in the higher education context to housing contexts. Courts have often interpreted civil rights statutes such as the Fair Housing Act and Title VI similarly. In one recent case, Californians for Equal Rights versus the City of San Diego, a lawsuit was filed by a non-BIPOC person attempting to challenge a home ownership program for BIPOC middle-income households in San Diego. It is one of the first challenges to a race-conscious housing program. The program is limited to people that have an income between 80% and 150% of median income and provides $40,000 for a deferred down payment loan and closing costs, or 20% grant for down payment and closing costs to BIPOC individuals in San Diego. In Alabama, an equal protection challenge has been filed by an applicant to the appraisal board to a requirement in Alabama law that requires 2 of 9 persons be minorities and a general requirement that the board reflect the diversity of Alabama. So what is the future of race-conscious and race-neutral housing programs we have discussed? Special purpose credit programs are firmly grounded in law, and many of them are neighborhood-based rather than based on the race of individuals and thus race-neutral. Special purpose credit programs like the San Diego program that target specific races or national origins are likely to be challenged. Race-neutral programs stand on firmer ground. This term, the Supreme Court declined to hear a case that raised the issue of whether race-neutral programs adopted for a racial purpose violate the Equal Protection Clause. In Coalition for TJ versus Fairfax County School Board, an organization of primarily Asian American parents filed a lawsuit against the Fairfax County School Board for violating the Equal Protection Clause by changing the admissions procedures by enacting facially neutral admissions criteria for a racial purpose. Thomas Jefferson High School is an elite high-performing public high school in Virginia. After the Virginia legislature passed a requirement that high schools develop diversity goals for students and faculty, TJ developed a new admissions procedure. Under the new admissions procedure, eligibility was limited to the top 1.5% of the 8th grade class at each public middle school. The Supreme Court's refusal to accept certiorari suggests that race-neutral housing programs such as first-generation homebuyer programs, affirmative marking, and anti-displacement preferences and neighborhood preferences, and neighborhood-based special purpose credit programs will not be struck down as unconstitutional or unlawful for now. Other challenges to race-neutral strategies remain in the Supreme Court's pipeline. In conclusion, the promise of the Fair Housing Act has yet to be realized, yet some progress has been made. Ambitious and promising programs such as special purpose credit programs, first generation programs, affirmative marking, and anti-displacement and neighborhood preferences have been developed and implemented to address the homeownership gap and inequities in housing. Whether the Supreme Court and other federal courts will allow such programs to continue in the long term remains to be seen. Thanks very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
If anyone has any questions, you can drop those into the chat box. I also got the question of whether this presentation will be available afterwards. We will be sharing it to our YouTube channel through Fair Housing Foundation if anybody wanted to revisit it at a later time.
Well, great. If there are no questions, thanks again for having me, and congratulations again on this Fair Housing celebration and on your new Fair Housing Initiatives program grant.
Thank you, Attorney Chang, for that very informative presentation. We appreciate you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alicia, and I am the Outreach Coordinator here at Fair Housing Foundation. I assist with cultivating community awareness by hosting workshops, attending community events, and meetings. My favorite things about home are spending time with my family, my pets, and my garden. Now, with great honor, I would like to introduce our second speaker for today, Dr. Sheila Chamberlain. She is a true fly girl, multi-talented and beautifully spirited trailblazer, and has real wings. She became the first Black woman combat intelligence pilot in the United States Army in 1985. She is highly active in her community through volunteering and mentoring. She is also the president of the Los Angeles chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen and a senior advisor for Sisters of the Skies. Her prolific and tireless work ethics has garnered her international recognition and awards. Please help me welcome Dr. Chamberlain.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Doctor.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd like to first say I'd like to give, all grace to God. I do come from a very Christian family, and of course, this is also Passover. So I wanted to say thank you for having me. Also to my classmate, Gary Williams, for asking me to come. It's been quite the pleasure, and it's good to see my classmates doing well. We graduated from Fort Knox High School, and there weren't that many of us at that time to make it. In fact, less than half of our classmates are left, and we've all gone out to do great things. So shout out to my classmate, Gary Williams, for asking me to come to do this today. Also, thank you for the board of directors for having me. Everyone who's here on the call, I had to call in. I'm here in the great state of Florida, and we're having, of course, our own housing issues, of course, like the rest of the world. Also, everyone who has participated in this, to include you all 54 of you all who showed up today, because you didn't have to come, but you showed up for this webinar. So I thank you for your time, because the one thing you cannot get back is time. And happy 40th Annual Fair Housing Day celebration. And I love and heard everything what you're doing. Me have gone to the University of Miami School of Law. I felt like I was in law school my second year all over again with Mr. Chang. Thank you very much, Mr. Chang, for updating us all on what matters. And this is what matters. Let me start off by saying to you, I've had quite the journey. I'm a Spelman woman, of course you could see. I grew up in post-Nazi West Germany. We were different. My cousin was Emmett Till, and Emmett's death in 1955 during Jim Crow laws changed my whole family dynamic. And my father didn't want us to be raised in this country. So, of course, by then you went by boat if you were a military family and dependent. So growing up over there, watching my father as a combat engineer to redo and reshape Germany, to rebuild it actually, Germany wasn't rebuilt finally under the Marshall Plan until 2028. I think it was 2008 was the last actual village that really all of Europe was completely done. I wish we would do that here in the United States. Just take each community at a time and to undo wrongs that were done to different races of all of us, immigrants who came. I'm also Native American, you know, the original habitats who are here. But we're all under one species, and that's the humanoid species. We all share the same gene, yet somehow when we've come here, there has been white wealth to split us into black and white. So when you come here, you're either black or you're white. But this generation that's coming through, I know is going to be changing things. And listening to what you all have done and are doing, I salute you. I've been a landlord, and of course I've been a general manager over 200 units at a time. I've built 17 homes from the ground up with a whole crew, and I've also been involved with, of course, disaster relief. We were some of the first people that came in after Hurricane Andrew to rebuild. And of course, and what I mean by alligators were still eating the flesh of human beings in New Orleans and in Gulfport along the way. So I understand what you all are going through, and because I've been there myself. I'm a disabled veteran. You know, I too suffer from PTSD, and I deal with a lot of homeless veterans, and that's part of me trying to help do my part on the veteran side, specifically women veterans who we've been left behind. And I've worked a lot with that. For 30 years, I worked to finally get a women's clinic here in South Florida, which we finally have to service women veterans. I was the second women veteran, and I was treated like crap. Now there's over 6,000 of us there with children. And there's a lot of women veterans who are homeless, living in their cars with their children, trying to make it, trying to find a home. There's a lot who now, of course, service dogs are legal, you know, who are trying to find a service dog, at least a companion, you know, that they could trust. A lot of this is built on trust. And listening and looking at some of the chat, you know, they ask, what's the first thing you think of when you think of home? And the first thing I think of when I think of home is peace, peace of mind, just peace to be, peace to breathe, peace to live, peace to enjoy. I'm very fortunate because I have a little hideout here. So not only do I get to see airplanes come in and come out, it's a blessing. Now, you all have heard I'm the president of the Tuskegee Airmen chapter in Los Angeles. I've been coming out there since the age of 14. I come from a family of aviators. You know, my mentor is one of the two people, of course, who created the Tuskegee Airmen, Willa Brown, the first Black woman to run for Congress. I was her mentee until she passed away in 1992. The greats taught me a lot, and they taught me to be. Somebody's got to do the hard work to move things forward. And people like you, people like Mr. Chang, you all do the hard work. So a lot of us will be able to benefit, so we won't be mistreated. So we'll be treated with kindness and respect and given food, shelter, and clothing, just the basics. Nobody's asking for anything else. And the laws to make sure they apply to all of us, not just for some of us, and not for those who just come and go along to get along, and not those who are not invested, who are just getting here, who don't know, who are just trying to live, trying to get a better life. trying to put a roof over your head. And we're going through a transition here in Florida. The whole country is, you know, banning of the books, and, you know, you've got some people on this call who have children, you know, whose books are being banned, can't read, you know, and some of you all who are working 2 or 3 jobs and it seems like there's no hope. Well, let me tell you, there's hope. You've got a whole crew like this, and they've been doing this for 40 years, replacing each and every one. When somebody leaves, somebody else comes in. That's the nature of God. God sends his angels. We're just stewards here, doing God's work, doing the best we can. So Alicia, Scott, Martha, Stacy, Gary, staff, all of you all, you're God's angels doing the hard work, and I salute you, and you're appreciated to go forward, to do great things. And God's watching you because guess what? From a distance, God is always watching to make sure that you do the right thing at the right time. And nobody deserves to have nothing less. We're all here to have the same decent quality of life. We're all here to have a kitchen to cook in, to have a decent bathroom to go to, if you need to. Get that. Working on my comedy career, sorry about that. But anyway, let me get back to the occasion. You know, I wanted to talk a little bit about disaster relief because I did a lot of that as well. After Hurricane Katrina, a lot of people found themselves in the same predicament. No home, homeless. And people didn't care how much money you had. It didn't matter, did it? God's funny like that. Got a way of showing you it doesn't matter. It's not about the dollar. It's about the quality of life. It's about giving back. It's about making sure we're all uplifted in our communities, and not just our communities, our collective communities, the world community. Now, I'm going to discuss a little bit about you. Of course, being in the military, you know, as an officer, you had that home, but I spend the majority of my time in a GP medium or on the ground or not sleeping at all in the middle of hard weather. And back then, you know, we had to carry 65-pound rucksack. So if you had to use the bathroom, you had a shovel on your rack that you had to dig a hole, if you get what I mean. I've been the chief of staff for 2 state senators here in Florida, and I've been very, 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 very blessed to be able to make a difference in fair housing here. Right, even now in Key West, there's no such thing as homelessness. They have places there to provide and make sure people are taken care of now. Up here in Miami, it's a different thing. You know, things change so quickly. And guess what? It does matter who you put in. It does matter who you vote for. It does make a difference who's in the White House. It does make a difference who's in Congress. Because these are the laws of the United States of America. And the laws make a difference. You see how quickly it could change in just a flick of a dime. So I deplore you and ask you, you hear me, if you have a right to vote, please register to vote. Do whatever you can to keep these people who are working for you every day and living it with you. To make sure fairness is due to all of us, not just some of us. I guess that meant pretty good for my other telephone. Anyway, let me get back to it. Yes, I'm still working on that comedy career. I took comedy for a year, no kidding, I really did, the improv. So, anyway, 2 guys and a girl. There were two young blonde guys, really, and then it was me. I had a great time. Anyway, back to the subject. So I flew for the United States Army in 1985. It became the United States Army's first combat intelligence African-American female pilot. I'm with Sisters of the Sky. Before that, it was the Bessie Coleman Foundation. I've also been the chair of the Bessie Coleman Foundation's 100th anniversary. Bessie Coleman was the first woman to receive her international license here in America in 1921 from France. She was discriminated against, and let's be clear, Jim Crow existed. If you don't know your history, if you don't tell your own story, nobody's going to tell it for you. There's an African saying, you hear me, about being the hunter and the hunted. If you don't tell your story, guess what? The hunter will tell it for you. I don't care what you call them. So we've got to learn to tell our own stories. Being into Emmett Till has been something else. I'm also the congressional liaison to the Congressional Medal for Emmett and Mamie Till Mobley. Last night, my cousin Wheeler was in Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas, and speaking about how far we've come as a nation, and we have, and how far we have yet to go, but yet progress has happened. In the South, you weren't even able to lift your head up. If you lift your head up in the South and looked at anyone white, they could kill you, lynch you, put you in jail. You had no rights. But look what's going on now, the change. And there's so much good change that could happen right now. And I really do pray that it happens for all of us and not just for some of us. Now, back to flying. Some of you all have children. And guess what? I implore your children, we have scholarships and things of that nature. Maybe some of your children want to become a future aviator, maybe an astronaut, maybe a rocket scientist. Create their own. Instead of calling it a Tesla, maybe they'll call it a Chamberlain. Who knows? Whoever you want to do is endless and priceless. I deal with a lot of people from broken families. And when I say broken but not beaten, broken but not beaten. So never lose hope. Never give up who you are. And I know it gets hard, especially if some of you all are a single parent. And I say parent, not just a mother, but also a father. Some of the fathers I've met have lost their mates, and they're there trying to make it with 3 or 4 kids. It's a different thing. Social media has just changed everything, just to a certain degree. Right now, you walk around with the technology of what's in the space shuttle in your hand every day if you have a cell phone. That's what you walk around with every day. In the palm of your hand, you can get information on anyone at any time. But I still say to you, contact that person. I have been in meetings and everything else with people telling me about Sheila Chamberlain. I'm like, oh, really? What else did she do? She did what? She did that. And then I tell them, I'm Sheila Chamberlain. I didn't know I did all that, but thank you very much. So always go to the person if you want to find out the story and the journey. That's what I recommend. I hope I'm doing okay. Am I doing okay by you all so far? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. We love to hear it.
Am I okay so far? I always ask for feedback.
Yeah, we're getting a bunch of thumbs up and greats coming through the chat. Thank you.
Now, I went to Spelman College, everybody. You see, the one thing I do is I take everybody with me. Nobody gets here by themselves. And it's always good. So build relationships. Have friends. Look at my classmate, Gary. Look how far our fathers served together in the military, and we all are still here together. We're military brats, and it's a strong bond. We leave nobody behind. You can't. Don't do it. And ask for help. And it's a matter of trust and uplifting. So I always say, work with people who will work with you. And not everybody wants to work with you now, okay? Not everybody wants to get in there with you. Not everybody wants to get in the trenches, okay? So you find people who are trench inners, and you work with them, and it's okay. Sometimes you have to take people for who they are. You know, my cousin Wheeler always says, Sheila, stay the course and stay in your lane. Stay the course and stay in your lane. And I stay in my lane. So what happens when you get out of your lane? It's a bad car accident, isn't it? Ooh, brother. So I stay in my lane. Now I got people getting in my lane, but I do my best to stay in my lane and to give love. Because you're not anything unless you have love in your life. You try your best. You hear me? Even if you find a goldfish. You know, I found a little goldfish out here, the 2 ducks, you know, who just didn't have it. The mother died, got ran over by a car. But you give love where you can, and it comes back to you. Whatever you give to the universe, it's going to come back to you. So if you get a you're going to get you know. And just remember, when somebody comes at you like that, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Something's going on with that person in that person's life, you know, and you can't help everybody, but do your best. And when you know better, do better. When you know better, do better. You know, my grandmother's favorite saying during slavery, Isaiah 40:31, and those that wait on the Lord, you're going to renew your strength. And you need to mount up as wings as eagles. So be the eagle. Gary and I went to Fort Knox. We're eagles, baby. You hear me? Be the eagle, the only bird that flies through a storm. Everything else jumps on its back, can only last a certain height. So we fly through a storm. We don't run away. We endure, and we finish it. And that's what you're supposed to do. Not everybody could do that. That's not everybody's assignment, and it's okay. But if you're true at your heart and you do your best with what you have, keep on getting up. You know, some of you all going to work today, go home at night. Go home and look that child in the eye tonight. Give them all a hug. Just kiss them all over the face. Some of y'all who are married have somebody significant. Just go home tonight. Just say thank you. Kiss them all over the face. You know, if you don't have enough money to go out and buy a lobster dinner, go do what you can. You hear me? Order out $3. You'd be surprised. You know, people will remember you if you care. And if you care, they'll give more. They'll give themselves. They'll give more. They'll come out and go, you know what? That's yesterday. I got up today, and guess what? I can give something. I don't care if it's a penny. You know, the other day I ran into a guy. He was in the middle of the street with a blanket over his head, hungry. I get a lot of that around here. And I try my best to do my best, you know, because I have a little money to something. I'll give him a hot meal for the day. Of course, I go back the next day to check on him and to check on him again, because some of those are veterans. And although VA has its programs, you have to take people for where they are. And when they're ready, they'll come. When they're ready, they'll come. Don't push people. Just give them a try. You've got to take them where they are, and you got to love, and you got to pray. Pray without ceasing. You know, pray without ceasing. They'll come around.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Chamberlain. I had someone with their hand raised, so I wanted to make sure that we have enough time to get any questions answered.
Oh,
so
I'm sorry. Sorry.
No, we love to hear it. It's been very inspirational. So just for the audience member who did have their hand up, I can't turn on two-way communication, but if you want to drop in your question into the chat box, we can go ahead and get your question answered. And that goes for anyone. I did want to open it up to any questions for Dr. Chamberlain. We have someone here with so much experience going up against so many different obstacles, breaking glass ceilings. So if you do have any questions, please drop them into the Q&A chat box.
I want to thank you all for having me. It's been unusual this way, but you know, watch God. Thank you all so much. Salute to each and every one of you, and I'll go ahead and answer those in the chat if that's okay.
Okay, so I have one question here. What inspired you to pursue being a fly girl?
I come from a family of aviators,
Mm,
and I have two cousins who were Tuskegee Airmen.
wow.
Of course, they broke down the barriers of them flying in World War II to where we have now. So it was destined. I didn't know that this was going to happen. I didn't ask for it, but here we are.
Yeah, we love to hear it. Thank you. All right, so I don't have any other questions coming in. But thank you again, Dr. Chamberlain. I just wanted to share that, let me get on camera here too. So I just wanted to share that my childhood hero was Amelia Earhart. So when I first heard that we were going to have the first fly girl participating in our celebration, it's been an honor to be able to hear you speak. And thank you so much for participating in this year's celebration. So thank you again. And it's a real honor to be able to share this space with you.
Thank you for having me. I just had a wonderful time. This was something, I had a speech for you, but you see the speech went out the window. That's what happens sometimes.
No, I loved hearing all the anecdotes. Thank you.
And keep going. We need you out there. We need you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so thank you again for Dr. Chamberlain. I did want to share that there was so much love coming in through the chat box, and we appreciate you, and thank you again for being here. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Cristina. I'm one of the outreach coordinators here at the Fair Housing Foundation, and I help with the marketing and outreach. So I wanted to mention that my favorite thing about home is being able to make yummy foods while also binge watching my favorite shows, and also shout out to my comfy bed. So I'm going to go ahead and move us on through today's programming, and we're now going to take a look at our youth poster contest. So the reason why we have a youth poster contest is to engage the youth in understanding the significance of fair housing. And so we invited students from 4th through 8th grade to submit a poster designed with this year's theme, Fair Housing, a Place to Call Home. So these next slides are going to show some of the posters that were submitted and what that means to them. I did want to give a special shout out to Lugo Elementary and the arts program at the Boys and Girls Club of Buena Park for participating in our workshop. It was an absolute pleasure working with all of the youth and being able to engage with them and have such incredible conversation. So thank you again for your commitment to fair housing. So in the next few slides, we are going to be taking a look at what top 5 posters we have that were chosen by FHF staff. And then we'll have one slide that will be showcasing all 5 posters, and we'll be launching a poll to give all of the attendees an opportunity to vote on their favorite poster. So what's at stake here? So 3rd place prize is $50. Second place is $75, and the 1st place grand prize is $125, all to be presented in an e-gift card. So winners are going to be announced next week via social media, and all of the winning contestants will be notified via email and phone call. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at some of those poster contest submissions. All right, so here's one of them. One of my favorite things about getting all of these poster contests being submitted through my inbox was being able to see every child's personality coming through the artwork. So it was an absolute delight receiving them. Like the creativity behind each and every one of these submissions is just, it's great. And it was interesting because I had tried doing the artwork with the kids, and it's very hard. So shout out to everyone who did participate. All right, so now we have all 5 posters on display. I'm gonna go ahead and launch a poll here. So everyone be ready to select their favorite poster. All right, and you'll only have 1 minute to make your decision. And I know it's going to be a difficult one because we had a hard time too. All right, we have 30 seconds remaining. All right, so the poll should have been launched. Okay, so time is up. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close out the poll. Thank you again, everyone who did participate. All right, so if you aren't already following us on social media and want to find out who your poster, like if your poster that you chose today is one of the top 3 winners, follow us on social media as we'll be doing the winner announcements there. So before we move on, I did want to bring up some honorable mentions just because we received so many fantastic pieces of artwork. We weren't able to display all of them, but here are some honorable mentions. So we do host this annually, so for whoever didn't make it into the top 5, feel free to resubmit next year. All right, and without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Liz Castro.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Liz Castro, and I am the program manager here with Fair Housing Foundation. For about 14 years now, I have been impressed over and over again by this team and how dedicated they are to our mission. And that's why I love days like today that not only honor fair housing and its meaning, but also to the staff who do so much. Plus, we get to sprinkle in a little bit of fun, and that is with our raffles. So this raffle shows appreciation to those of you who have joined us in celebrating Fair Housing Month. Luckily, like Christina said earlier, everyone's RSVP automatically entered them in a chance to win. The winner does have to be in attendance today, and they can collect their prize from our orange office. So I could not move on without giving a huge thank you to these outstanding donors that you see here. We appreciate their kindness and their generosity to our mission. So let's go ahead and get started. Good luck, everyone. So first up, we have our donation that comes from the Aquarium of the Pacific, where the winner will receive 2 admission tickets. So let's spin the wheel and see who the lucky winner will be. The anticipation. Congratulations, Miss Marina Capillo. We hope you enjoy your prize. So second on deck, we have coming from BarkBox. It's 1 classic plush box, which will include 2 plush toys, 2 bags of yummy treats, and 1 surprise item for your fur baby. So we'll spin our wheel. And Miss Irma Sobreros, congratulations on your prize. We hope you enjoy. They keep coming, guys. We got more. So third up, we have coming to us from Wood Ranch Grill. It's a $50 gift card to enjoy off your next meal. I get to do the easy stuff, guys. I get to give away some fun items. So the winner for this gift card is Demarius Perez. Congratulations. All right. And our fourth prize comes from the Hollywood Wax Museum, where the winner will get 2 admissions tickets to either the Hollywood Wax Museum itself and or the Guinness World Records Museum. We'll go ahead and give it a spin. Congratulations, Miss Julie Villanueva. We hope you enjoy your prize. And now I have the honor of introducing one of our amazing housing counselors, Sonia Bartow.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Sonia Bartow, and I specialize in landlord-tenant counseling. So I'm one of the counselors here. I was a paralegal for 3 years in the past in the area of public interest law at a legal nonprofit organization. And what is my favorite thing to do at home is basically garden in my backyard and play with my 2 Yorkies. And now I'm going to proceed also with one of the raffles. This raffle is from Pacific Park in Santa Monica Pier. 2 unlimited wristbands. Donation Pacific Park of the Santa Monica Pier. So let's see, who is the winner? Congratulations to Ms. Carter. Enjoy the prize. And now the second prize is round of golf for 2 players. Donation Emerald Isle. Let's spin the wheel. And the winner, Emiliano Lopez. Congratulations. Enjoy your ticket. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce to you another one of our housing counselors, Martin Salinas.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Martin Salinas, another housing counselor here at Fair Housing. A little bit about myself is that I studied community leadership at Cal State LA. I've also worked as a youth leader, helping to lead lesson programs for children to transition back to in-person learning. One of my favorite things to do at home is to be able to shut the negativity outside and enjoy the peace and comfort of my home. The following prizes are up for a raffle. It's going to be a $98 gift cards towards any tour, donation from the Malibu Wine Tours. And the winner for this prize is Connie Haynes. Congratulations. And the next prize up for raffle is a 4-pack of free buffet and beverage admissions to John's Incredible Pizza. And the winner for that prize is going to be Miss Stacy Rodriguez. Congratulations to both our winners, and I hope you enjoy the prizes. I would like to now introduce our other housing counselor, Mr. Gary Williams.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Williams. I am the classmate of Dr. Sheila Chamberlain. The one thing Dr. Chamberlain didn't say is that she is a renowned drummer. She's been playing drums ever since high school, ever since I can remember, and she's very, very good. A little bit about myself. I'm a second careerist, disabled veteran, Spent 15 and some odd years in the military, United States Army. Started off as a correctional specialist, went into infantry, personnel record specialist, supervisor, Army instructor. After leaving the Army, I came out to California and formed a community watch group for my complex that I live in now. Got bored, went to school, paralegal degree, and here I am with the awesome Fair Housing Foundation since October of 23. So I'm the new kid on the block, and I'm enjoying it. Thank you. The thing that I like about home is family love. That's where family comes, and the serenity. So moving on, we're going to do a raffle. The first ticket that we have are, actually it's 4 tickets to the Los Angeles County Fair. Ernesto Cortez, congratulations. Enjoy the fair. And the next is to Urban Air Adventure Park. I understand it's a trampoline park too, for 2 deluxe passes. Carolyn Alward, congratulations. Please both enjoy your prizes. Next, I would like to introduce to you another member of our team, Ms. Elizabeth Calderon.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Calderon, the receptionist at Fair Housing Foundation. As the first point of contact, I always strive to assist in a professional and compassionate manner to all our callers. My favorite things to do at home are to cook and spend time with my family. And now for our next raffle prizes. We have 2 Sender 1 entries to climbing or bouldering class or for Sender City. Let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see who our lucky winner is. Congratulations, Juanita Wilson. Now, for our last raffle, we have a delicious prize from In-N-Out Burger. It is for a 12 valued guest meal card and action pack. You will get to enjoy a free meal once a month for a whole year plus additional goodies. Let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see who our lucky winner is. And that is Aaliyah Carter. Congratulations, Aaliyah, and to all our winners today. So now I'm going to go ahead and send it back to our director, Stella Verdeja, for some closing remarks. Thank you.
I would like to thank both our speakers, Scott Chang and Dr. Chamberlain. Thank you for all the hard work you do and the excellent talks you provided us today. I would like to thank everyone for attending our Fair Housing celebration. Now is the time to renew our commitment to enhancing the community's awareness of fair housing rights and emphasizing the importance of ending housing discrimination. I hope today's celebration has inspired you to be a stronger advocate for fair housing. If you or someone you know has experienced discrimination, please contact us. We are here to help. And as we end today's program, let us take the time to remember the theme, fair housing, a place to call home. Let us all work together to start transforming our community towards a brighter and stronger future. In addition, I would like to thank the Fair Housing staff for all their hard work and their continuous dedication to the cause. Without them, this could not be possible. Thank you from all of us at the Fair Housing Foundation.